bleed green? Are you an ultimate Eagles football fan? Well, you're in the right place. Ready? This is Birds 365, hosted by the new Mac and Mac, Jody McDonald and John McMullen.
Here we go!
Who collectively have covered and talked about more than 50 plus years of Eagles football. Kick off your day with Birds 365. You'll get debate.
We love to argue.
You'll get the real story from inside the locker room. And you'll hear from some of the great football minds from around the region. You're about to become an Eagles insider. Get in the game. Join Jody Mack and Johnny Mack and join the football community that flocks to Birds 365. Birds 365 starts right now.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go! Let's go! Go!
And a good summer Monday morning, Eagles fans. How are you? We hope well. You got your boys, Mac and Mac, here on Birds 365 as the countdown continues. Johnny Mac, 15 days until the Eagles first report back from camp. They'll have their first activity the day after. You got your car up and running and ready to get across the bench.
Oh, why are you bringing that up, man?
You're gonna no flat tires, you sure?
You're gonna jinx it, man. You never bring that kind of stuff up. Yeah, if it's gonna happen, it's gonna happen on that day. That's yeah. No,
are you an overly superstitious guy? Do you believe in jinxing?
No, I don't believe in superstition at all.
But yet you're going to give me a hard time because I bring up the fact that you're going to get a flat tire on first day of Eagles camp.
Yeah, I'm just going to give you it. That's happened before, by the way. No, I do not believe in superstition. Yes.
I minimally do. Every once in a while, it's just a little too great for me to completely dismiss, but I'm not a big superstitions fan.
Well, a lot of fans say when you say something good and say, oh, you're jinxing them. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I have no control over the Philadelphia Eagles. So, yeah, for the most. But I like to give people a hard time occasionally, as
Understood.
you know.
I had Ben Wagner on the voice of the Toronto Blue Jays on my CBS Sports Radio show this weekend. And we booked him to basically talk about the fact that the Blue Jays were playing well and had moved into second place or third place in their division into a playoff spot in the American League. And then they go out and get no hit that day. We had already booked them ahead of time, and they get a combined no hitter thrown out by the Detroit Tigers. So I asked them, how do you handle it? Do you not mention it's a no hitter? He said, Jody, it's my job to tell the people what they're doing. Of course, I mentioned it was a no hitter. I don't believe in jinxes or superstitions or anything else. And I certainly concur with that. Your job is to call a game, not worry about what fans think. But we kind of worry about what fans think and what fans are thinking coming into this upcoming season, where the expectations are certainly higher than they were going into last season. A lot of work the Eagles have to do, and it'll get done by their coaching staff and their players if they're to get back to the Super Bowl. And speaking of their players, Ed Krause and John McMullen have been putting together a top 25 list of best Eagle players. Some people have done the list as most important Eagle players, not exactly the same our two SI guys have done. And 3 new additions. We're getting close, Johnny Mac. Tomorrow we'll crack the top 5. You got 6, 7, and 8 today. We left off at number 9 with Darius Slay on your list. At number 8, Josh Sweat, who I think you like to say is one of the more underranked players on the Philadelphia Eagles. That's not disrespect at number 8. That's pretty high rating for Josh Sweat, but I have him right in the same area. Dallas Goedert at number 7 and Devonta Smith at number 6. Slay into Sweat, into Goedert, into Smith. Give us the combined thinking of you and Ed Krause as to how you came up with those guys at those spots.
Well, we were exactly the same on Josh Sweat. We both had him number 8, so he ended up number 8, obviously. So we're pretty concrete. As I mentioned, 8, 9, which is pretty amazing. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, which was Josh Sweat, Darius Slay, Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, James Bradbury were exactly the same, which blew my mind that we were exactly the same on those particular players. We had two dead ties that Jody McDonald broke, and one of them was at number 6. I had Dallas Goedert one spot ahead of Devonta Smith. Ed Kratz had Devonta one spot ahead of Dallas Goedert, and you had Devonta Smith on your list graded above Dallas Goedert. So Devonta gets that razor sharp sort of nod over Dallas Goedert, and they're both really good players. I'm not going to hand wring about that. I think Dallas is a little bit farther along, but he got hurt. And Devonta, who knows where Devonta could go? He's so young in his career and how high he could go on not only this list, but a list of best receivers in football. Problem is, we haven't gotten to one name who's still to come. And, it's tough to have 2 top 5 receivers on one team, but who knows? You never know. But yeah, that's sort of where it was. We're right in the wheelhouse. I mean, again, Goddard and Smith, we were just mirrors of each other, and Sweat exactly the same. So that's where we are in the list. The top 5, you can pretty much ascertain who's in that group, which I think is the correct top 5. Some people, I guarantee, are going to argue with how it ended up, just because of the nature of a certain position. But, this is a really good team. But one thing I noticed doing this, Jody, the offense is better than the defense.
Offense a little better than the defense. Yeah, I would tend to agree. And as you say, there you can probably figure out who the top 5 are right now. We've been giving you John and Ed's list, counting down from like 6. Let's go down to 14. Well, who you had this past week? Smith at 6, Goddard at 7, Josh Sweat at 8, Darius Slay at 9, Mailata at 10, Landon Dickerson 11, Bradbury 12, BG 13, Avonte Maddox 14. There's a bunch of defensive guys in there. That means there's going to be offensive guys left at the top of the list. Mine was a little bit different. I had Cox higher than you. You weren't willing. Where do you have Cox? You had Cox 15. I had him 14. 15. Oh, it was Carter. I had Jalen Carter at 13. Higher than you said. Can't put a rookie as high as maybe you would like to because you're a huge Carter guy and believe he's going to have a very impressive rookie year. I'm banking on that, and I showed that via my ratings. I got her down. I only had him at 12 because I think the outside guys will get more passes than the tight end will. Slade 11, I had lower than you guys. You had him higher. Dickerson, I had Sweat 9. You had him 8. I had Mailata higher. I had him 8. And Smith 9. I had Bradbury very high. You guys had Bradbury down at number 12. I had him at number 6. I think he had a better year than Slay. And yes, the defense is going to need to be able to make plays somewhere. Getting to the quarterback will be one, and stopping the throws downfield will be the other. And I got Bradbury ranked ahead of Slay. So I had him in my top 6. If I were to give you, and I'm going to try and do this on the fly as best I can, in alphabetical order, 5 guys who I haven't gotten to on my list, and 5 guys who John hasn't gotten to his list with Ed Kratz. In alphabetical order, it would be AJ, Jalen, Lane, before L, Kelsey, Lane, and Reddick. Those would be the 5 players that I have in my top 5 in alphabetical order. Those your 5 players you got left?
Well, yeah, I mean, yes. Obviously, they're not going to be not on the top 25 list. That's a pretty good group.
You mean you somehow force-fed Reddick onto your list there, huh, John?
Well, and foreshadowing, there's, it's not foreshadowing. You just said it. That's the only defensive player left. So that's the top defensive player on this team. And I think rightfully so. I mean, he was 4th in defensive player of the year voting. 19 and a half sacks, if you want to add into the playoffs, 6 forced ball. I mean, he was everything. The pressure numbers, the hurry numbers. He was everything and more the Eagles could have hoped for when they signed him as a free agent. Quickly is now underpaid. You know, if you think about Howie Roseman's offseason, 2 of the top 5 players on this team were acquired last offseason, 1 in free agency, 1 on the trade market. And as good as this team is, that's a hell of an offseason. So when people talk about Howie's offseason this year, which looks good on paper, it's going to have a real difficult time living up to last year because, I mean, Reddick and Brown right there, bang, bang.
And, oh, by the way, from time to time I get calls like this when I'm doing radio shows. and they don't have homegrown players. Too many of their players, like with the Phillies over the weekend, the Phillies all-stars are not homegrown. Aaron Nola's the only one in the last decade. I don't care. Do you care how the player joins the organization? If they show up and they show out and they play great, who the hell cares how they were acquired? Eagles had to give up a first-round pick to get their hands on A.J. Smith. So maybe they kept the first round and maybe became a star. No, you needed a star immediately, and you got it in A.J. Brown. There's a reason for it. It doesn't lessen the player just because they didn't call out his name on draft night or sign him.
And the Eagles have plenty of homegrown players. If you look at our top 10, the players we've already gotten to, Mailata's homegrown, Sweat's homegrown, Goddard's homegrown, Devonta's homegrown. And then you talk about the 5 we haven't gotten to. The only one who isn't home, 2 aren't home. The 2 I just talked about. So the other 3 are homegrown. So, I mean, most of the top 10 is. Yeah, that's more of a baseball thing. I do hear it more in baseball. And it's like, who cares? I mean, I think it was always jealousy towards the teams that had a lot of money, like the Yankees, the Dodgers, the Red Sox, and they just buy players. And you got to go about it. It's an uncapped world there. So certain teams have to go about it a different way. And it becomes, I think, more important. But the draft is important. And the Eagles... That's 70% of the top 10 draft. That's pretty good.
Yeah, I'm not going to worry about how the Eagles went about getting the players. But you know who the top 5 are? The question is what order they will be in. We'll reveal them one day at a time over the next 5 days with the Eagles' top 25 players. That's what this season is. We're counting it down. We are now just 15 days away from the Eagles reporting to camp and getting the 2023 season underway. Yeah, in the meantime, we'll just continue to analyze, if not overanalyze, the moves that have made, the roster strengths, how it's going to play out this year. Relatively new coaching staff. When you change out 2 coordinators like the Eagles did this year, yeah, that's pretty good change to your coaching staff. We talk about it day in and day out here on Birds 365, and we try and get guys whose opinions we appreciate and think are pretty well educated on the Birds on a day in, day out basis as far as guests go. We've done that again today. You should recognize the name. You'll recognize the face when he joins us. A longtime Eagle beat guy and now creator of the Eagles, IGGLES Blitz.com. Tommy Lawlor is going to jump in with us. McMullen and McDonald, you got it right here on Birds 365.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
For the big story on Action News,
search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction, go with trust,
Go Birds!
and go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia Dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
All right, did you know I was the mommy slam dunk champion?
Really?
Yes, really don't sound so surprised.
Let's see it.
Oh, you're ready. All right, here we go. Let's hear the crowd. So go to right, I go to left, fake a mom. Mama, go up, mama!
She did it.
Again?
You can't avoid gravity, but United Healthcare can help you avoid financial surprises by helping you compare costs and doctor quality ratings. United Healthcare.
Uh-huh.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Mac, McMullen, and McDonald here with you on Birds 365. We're lucky enough to get Tommy Lawlor, longtime Eagle beat guy and creator of EaglesBlitz.com, to jump on with us for a couple of minutes here today. Tommy, saw a couple of your posts of late. You're kind of like us. Got to come up with things to talk about during the offseason when there's no actual on-field activity to get done. What right now do you think is the Eagles have to focus on as soon as they show? First day of camp, what is the most important thing? Probably not on-field because they're not going to do a hell of a lot. The Eagles don't always do a hell of a lot. But mindset-wise, what's the first thing that you believe has to be put in place when the 2023 season opens up?
Put last year in the rearview mirror, right? The Super Bowl and that great season, that was all nice, but that's history. You need to focus on what's in front of you. And we know Nick Sirianni always really preaches one game at a time, focus on winning the day, getting one bit better each day. And that mentality is part of what helped them have so much success last year. It's really challenging to do that coming off a Super Bowl. If you go back to 2005, the Eagles have made the Super Bowl in 2004, loaded with star players, and a lot of those players talked about the fact, like the secondary, Lito Shepherd had a terrible season. Well, he couldn't get his mind off the fact he had been so good in 2004, so he lost that edge that helped make him so good, played sloppy. Michael Lewis, the safety, had made the Pro Bowl in 2004. 2005, he was a bad player. All he could do was think about how good he had been the year before. You can't think about the past. You've got to focus on the present and the future. So the challenge will be for Nick Sirianni and the veteran leaders to get those guys to stay focused on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and you had mentioned at your latest at EaglesBlitz.com, Tommy, that it feels like the current Eagles team has a better chance of sustaining success than the 2017 team. I kind of agree with you, but interested to hear your thoughts as to why you think they have a better opportunity than that 2017 team.
Well, when Doug Peterson talked about the new norm back in February of 2018 and how he wanted to be playing games in January and February and compete for championships, I kind of bought into that idea. And we had just seen Nick Foles have a sensational playoff. Carson Wentz was on pace to be the NFL MVP, so we thought Wentz was going to continue that. And then we saw guys like Corey Clement play out of his mind in the Super Bowl. You go, oh, wow. Imagine if he could play like that for a whole year. What a weapon he'd be. We had all these things that look great, but in retrospect, They were kind of anomalies. Carson Wentz never played that well again. Nick Foles never played that well again. Corey Clement never played that well again. And so what you saw, that was kind of that playoff run. The team was great all year. That playoff run was really special. And the guys who played like that were not like proven star players who had a background of that. And so getting them to live up to those levels, it just didn't happen. And so with the current team, I think you look at A.J. Brown. He was one of the best receivers in football when the Eagles got him. Devonta Smith was a top 10 pick or top 12 pick, whatever he was. He was, he won the freaking Heisman Trophy in college. Hassan Reddick was a double-digit sack guy the previous 2 seasons. So he came to Philadelphia and did more of the same. So guys don't have to do something special. They just have to play up to their ability. And then it's up to the coaching staff to give them the right structure and to fill holes here and there and that kind of thing. But the talent is there. Whereas the 2017 team felt like a few things went right that just, in retrospect, weren't sustainable.
Tommy, I think one of the more debatable positions on the Philadelphia Eagles, not as to whether it's going to be good enough, because I think it is, but how they're going to be deployed, how they're going to be used, is running back. Last year, coming into the season, you knew Miles Sanders was going to be the lead guy, and Miles had a damn good season. Wasn't as good in the postseason. Maybe an injury contributed to that, but didn't finish the year in postseason the way he had gone all year long. No longer here. They added Rashad Penny. They added DeAndre Swift to Kenny Gainwell coming back from Boston, Scott coming back. How do you think the Eagles are going to determine who gets the ball on any given week with the guys they have in the running back room right now?
I would assume they're going to go with a hot hand type thing. If you look at Penny and Swift, they combined for 8 years of NFL experience. Those two players have combined for 3 games of 20 carries or more, right? They are not used to being a workhorse. So having both of them play and get 10 to 12 carries, it really makes sense. And one game you might have a guy who gets 12 carries, the other guy gets 6, and then you mix in Gainwell and possibly Boston Scott. And you're going to kind of go with who's the better fit for the game plan that day. I think Penny is probably the more talented player overall. He averages 5.7 yards a carry for his career. That's nothing to sneeze at. Even though he's been injured, that's still impressive. And his downhill physical running style with the burst he's got to deliver plays, I think Nick Sirianni is going to love that. And I think they'll go with him. Swift is the better receiver and the more complete back. They'll mix him in. And, of course, we saw with last year in the playoffs, they like Kenny Gainwell. They love to get him touches, but I don't think they're quite at a point where they think he's ready to be the guy. So they're going to really mix it up and go running back by committee unless somebody just plays phenomenal and is so good that you have to give that guy the ball.
I want to give you my Anthony Harris theory when it comes to Rashad Penny, Tommy, and see what you think of that. I think it was August 30th when the Eagles traded for C.J. Gardner-Johnson. On August 29th, Anthony Harris was the number 1 safety on this team. On August 30th, he was down to number 5 and off the 53-man roster because he can't help on special teams. He can't fit into that role, and all of a sudden things shifted to him that quickly. It's not going to be the exact same potentially with Rashad Penny because I don't expect the Eagles to go out and trade for a running back or even bring somebody new in. But my point is, if he's not the lead back, or if he's not at least the co-lead back, whatever terminology you want to use, he's not going to make this football team, is he? Because he's not going to help on third downs. He's not going to help in hurry-ups. He's not going to help in special teams like guys like Kenny Gainwell, Boston Scott. Then you throw in Trey Sermon, who Nick Sirianni keeps bringing up unprompted, and he could be at least around for a little bit of time. Whereas if you go with Penny, here's the second part of it. If he hits a home run and is tremendous, he's going to cost too much money. The Eagles aren't going to sign him. If he plays poorly, they're not going to want to sign him. So he's a 1-year guy anyway. Is there a possibility? If he has a bad summer, out of here.
If he has a bad summer, I absolutely agree. The Harris comparison is interesting. The one difference there, I'm not 100% sure, but Harris, I think, might have been an undrafted player. And
He
Harris
was undrafted, but
and he had one breakout year when he had 6 or 8 interceptions for Minnesota, was not an above average starter throughout his career in Minnesota. You look at Penny, he was the number 27 pick in the draft, was a star in college, and has kind of special ability. The big problem with him, he hasn't been healthy. So with Harris, if he wasn't going to be like in a specific role, there wasn't really a need to keep him beyond the fact that he was experienced. With Penny, there's talent there. So the comparison does make some sense in the fact that if Penny isn't going to be a key player for you, then as just a role player, there's not much there. But I will say, if you look at it, a couple of years ago, you had Miles Sanders and Jordan Howard as a 1-2 punch. Jordan Howard wasn't playing on special teams, and they kept him, and he was again a veteran who I think was on the final year of his contract, if not a 1-year deal. So I think keeping Penny and Swift is likely, unless one of them struggles. And if they struggle, you're absolutely right. They're going to be on a short leash because that's a replaceable position. And we know Trey Sermon's going to Canton. It's just a question of when he gets on the field, right?
Well, when he gets on the field, the coach will sing his praises. We're pretty sure about that. Well, follow-up running back question, because Johnny and I have debated this plenty during the offseason, and specifically with the one addition Eagles made at running back. See if you're in the same camp we are. DeAndre Swift brings pass-catching ability out of the backfield. He's been one of the best receiving backs in the NFL the last several seasons in Detroit. Do you think that will change the Eagles' way of running their offense? That because they've got another skilled guy at it, and we believe Gainwell's not bad at it, that they will throw the ball to the backs coming out of the backfield more than they did last year by a significant number?
Significant? No, not at all. I don't think they're going to reshape the offense. Obviously, if you go back with Sirianni, Austin Eckler played well for him years ago. He's had success with throwing the ball to running backs. But the way this offense has currently evolved, you have downfield threats, and then you have the run game. And the way it really works right now, you just don't need to feed the ball to the running backs. And I don't know that really would be a strength for Jalen Hurts. I think he's better on intermediate and deep throws, and he's going to be throwing balls into the flat. So I would expect them to continue to feature the wide receivers, to get the ball to Dallas Goedert, and to mix in the running backs here and there. Hopefully they'll be a little bit better than they were in the last couple of years, because it is a valuable weapon to be able to get the ball to a running back in space beyond just a handoff. Makes the defense, cover something else. So they need to do it more, because we know Nick Sirianni has that theory: don't ever be last in the NFL on something. And catches by a running back, they obviously need to do a better job, but they don't need to go significantly more.
Yeah, I'm surprised how many people bring that up, Tommy. I get the health part of it. You want to take some of the load off Jalen Hurts. If Phillip Rivers were Nick Sirianni's quarterback, Kenny Gainwell would have caught 65 passes last year. I mean, that's the style of the quarterback, and that's which I think is a positive for Nick. He understands that, and he sort of morphs around the quarterback. With Jalen Hurts, he's going to get more than dumping it off to the back when he extends plays or runs it himself. So there's no need to dump it off to the back. But I think you're right. Now that they have Swift, and to a lesser degree, Gainwell getting a little bit better, hopefully, now they can manufacture touches for the running back. I always bring up those bubble screens. It'd be nice to have DeAndre Swift catching that instead of saying Quez Watkins, because he can break that first tackle and make something out of it. I think that's where it's important. The Eagles can now, I still want to get the ball in the hands of AJ, Devonta, and Dallas Goedert before I want to, throw a bubble screen. But we know how this team works. And if they have the advantage and they say, numbers say throw it outside, they're going to throw it outside. And if that's DeAndre Swift instead of a receiver, I'll put AJ up to the side because he's so powerful. But he can break that first tackle and turn those ugly bubble screens into something, at least on paper.
Yeah, listen, I've always said that, sometimes there's an over focus on the running game. And if you really talk about what you want is touches by your running backs. So as we all know, back in the Andy Reid era, it wasn't runs, right? Brian
Yeah.
Westbrook was carrying 175 times a year when we might want him to carry 250. But they made sure to get him 80, 90 catches. And so when you looked at total touches, it was reasonable. Well, Nick Sirianni is willing to feed the running backs the ball as runners, so they don't have to give him as many touches as a receiver. But you're absolutely right. You want running backs to get the ball in space because they know how to make plays. They can make a guy miss. They can break a tackle. They're used to having to do that. And so get them into space where they only have one or two defenders to make miss. And that's when you have a chance for a big play. So I absolutely agree. And as we talk about Nick Sirianni, it's a real credit to him that his offense has evolved. Think about our good friends down in Dallas with Mike McCarthy. He just fired Kellen Moore because he wants to go back to more of the offense he ran in Green Bay 10 years ago. Well, Nick Sirianni, what does he do? He comes in here and he's coached Phillip Rivers and he's coached about 27 different quarterbacks with the Colts. And he comes in here and he's Jalen Hurts, who's unlike anybody he's ever coached. He builds he starts the offense one way, and then the middle of the 2021 season changes it. And it's evolved since then. And he's taking advantage of the talent he has and also what the rules of the NFL are today and what works in the NFL today. He's not caught in the past the way that Mike McCarthy seems to be. So that's a good sign of a coaching. Use your talent and evolve your offense and make sure that you get the most out of your players.
Yeah, Andy Reid used to debunk the fact that he threw the ball too much by saying, well, a short passes to Westbrook are runs as far as I'm concerned. In his mind, they were the same as runs. You're just throwing it slightly rather than handing it off. Andy looked at, because everyone would always scream about the run-pass ratio with
John Runyon didn't agree with that. That's for sure.
True. Little different expectations for the offensive lineman getting out there blocking in space. All right. Here's the key question to the offense for me this upcoming offseason. Brian Johnson. We know he's got a great relationship, long-term relationship with Jalen Hurts, and has been the quarterback coach here since Coach Sirianni showed up. But he's the guy who's going to be calling plays this year. Understand it's Sirianni's offense, and he create the plays all week long building up to Sunday. But in that split second, got to make the decision, what are we going with here? It's going to be Brian Johnson. Both John and I believe Shane Steichen was outstanding at play calling last year. How much of a risk is it turning it over to someone else? Now, you didn't have a choice because Shane Steichen took the job as head coach of the Colts. Brian Johnson, just a simple transition from Steichen to Brian Johnson, or is Brian Johnson going to be under a microscope when this season's open up in his play calling ability?
Oh, he'll be under a microscope for sure. The Eagles fans, Eagles media, the NFL in general, because the Eagles' success last year, everybody's going to want to see what this offense does. And if there's any drop off, they're going to say, well, they got Hurts back. They've got AJ back. They've got Devonta back. Who's the guy who's missing? It's the play caller. So he'll be under a lot of pressure. I think you had to promote from within if you felt like the guy was competent. Obviously, Brian Johnson has a great reputation in football right now. He had success at the college level. He did a great job tutoring Jalen Hurts the last couple of years, getting him to play at an elite level. So everything points to him being ready for this job. Until you're the guy making those calls, there's some unknown, right? It's absolutely fair to say that. So we'll see how he does. But Sirianni, based on the way that he was developed as a coach, coaches his coaches, he likes to say. And I think that he's worked to get them ready for these opportunities, and he feels like Brian Johnson is ready for this opportunity. There will be some good moments. There will be some bad moments. There's probably going to be a couple of things he does better than Shane Steichen. There's going to be a few things he's not going to do as well. So it'll be interesting to see. And overall, I think the offense should continue to perform at a high level. But there could be a few moments where you really do find out you missed Steichen.
Yeah, we brought up 2017 and sort of sustaining that success. I mean, one of the things was losing Frank Reich and losing John DeFilippo. And because I don't want to compare Carson Wentz to Jalen Hurts, because I think Jalen's completely different from a mindset. I think he's tougher mentally, to put it nicely. I think he's got a better work ethic, to put it nicely. So I don't want to make that comparison, but I do want to make the comparison from John DiFilippo to Press Taylor for this reason, Tommy. John was kind of the hard ass that kept Carson on task, and then Press Taylor was kind of his friend. And nobody's denying Press Taylor's a good football coach. Well, some people did for a while, but now that he's recovered in Jacksonville, pretty clear he's on a nice path himself. But he's very close, almost, and the Eagles would say a little bit too close to Carson Wentz from a friend perspective. I always compared it to good cop, bad cop. Like John was the bad cop and Press was the good cop as the assistant quarterback coach. And then when he became the quarterback coach, can't change that. Now, Shane, for those who don't know, I'm not going to call him a bad cop, but he could be, I always say, can't get out of a conversation with Shane Steichen without about 15 F-bombs, which is hilarious to begin with. But now you have Brian Johnson, who's known Jalen Hurts since he was basically 4 years old. They're very close. In the case of Taylor, too close. Could too close be a problem to the quarterback? Because sometimes you got to be a bad cop. Did I make sense at that?
No, totally. Yeah. And finding the right fit is always a challenge. There's no question. And you don't need guys to come in and kiss your butt and be nice and walk on eggshells around you. You've got to have tough coaching sometimes. We know Sirianni can be a tough coach. Brian Johnson, I think because of his background, having been played at Utah where they don't exactly pamper athletes, right? He's coached in college. He had to grind his way up. So I think he's going to have a little bit more experience. I think he's going to have a little bit more of an edge to him than Press Taylor did. And part of the other thing is just age. He's a little bit older. So Press Taylor was so close to Carson age-wise, made things a little awkward, and Brian's a little bit older. Now, the other thing is you have a player in Jalen Hurts who wants to be coached hard, right? And so Brian Johnson doesn't have to hesitate, think, can I say this? Should I say this? If it feels right, just say it, because he knows the hardest coaching Jalen Hurts has ever gotten was from his dad. And obviously he's still super close to his dad. So he knows it's okay. You can let loose. You can be tough. And Jalen Hurts wants that. So I think the relationship's a little different. Carson, Carson's such a complicated subject, man.
I know.
Sigmund Freud would have gone to work at McDonald's if he met Carson Wentz. Trying to get inside that mind of his is a challenge. But Carson wanted the appearance of being coached hard, but what he really wanted was people to tell him, "Hey, listen, you're the guy, you're the dude. We love you, you're awesome." And he struggled, when people were hard on him. And so that was tough for him to take. And so with Jalen, you have a guy who's going to embrace criticism because he knows criticism is how you get better. You can't correct what's gone right. You correct what's gone wrong. You need somebody to point out, hey, Jalen, your completion percentage inside the 10-yard line isn't good enough. We need to work on that. He doesn't want to hear, oh, hey, listen, you're great at quarterback sneaks. He wants to hear what's wrong because that's what you can fix. That's how you get better. So I think that'll play a part. But listen, that dynamic of coaches and emotions and personality, one of the things with the Dallas Cowboys that back in the 90s, when they were so good, Troy Aikman loved being coached hard. And when Jimmy Johnson left, that he never got coached hard again. He was a star quarterback. So anybody they brought in treated him like the star quarterback, and the team got softer because of that. He liked it when he played for Jimmy because Jimmy was hard on him, and the rest of the players said, well, if he's going to be that hard on this freaking star quarterback, he's going to be hard on me. The next guys who came in were more like sycophants. And so that's Troy. We'll take care of Troy. We'll watch Troy. Well, then the team became soft. And as we know, they've not had a lot of playoff success since then. So you need the right player and the right people around him, but you got to have tough coaching if you want the right results.
All right, Tommy, here's my next question, and I'll entree into it by giving you some stats. The Eagles' fifth leading tackler last year was who? If I tell you the top four were TJ Edwards, Kaiser White, CJ Gardner-Johnson, and Marcus Epps, their two safeties and their two linebackers, those are their top four tacklers. Who's number 5?
Javon Hargrave.
Correct. Yet somehow Javon Hargrave this year, as per PFF, a terrible run defender. Great at getting up the field. Great at getting sacks. Got 11 of them. He's their 5th leading tackler. So you're not only taking out a guy who got 11 sacks, but your 5th leading tackler. And we just kind of brush over the fact that Javon Hargrave is not here anymore. I get it. They used a very high draft pick on a guy that both John and I like a lot and think is an uber talent who was underdrafted because of off-field incidents. Are we underrating how much the Eagles are going to miss Javon Hargrave?
That's a tricky question. Let's talk about the sacks to start with. He had, which is it, 11 and a half sacks last year?
Yeah.
So he had, the previous 2 years, I think he combined for like 10 sacks. So that 11 sacks was an anomaly for him. He was not a guy that had played anywhere close to that level in the past. So could he repeat that? Will he repeat that in San Francisco? That's a huge, huge thing. As a run defender, part of that is making plays to get in the ball. Part of that is with the Eagles, and what they do is eating up gaps and being able to control 2 gaps. Watch the Super Bowl. Javon Hargrave really struggled against the run. Chiefs ran for 158 yards in the Super Bowl. Hargrave's run defense was not good. So there's no question that they can improve on their run defense. Now, he did make plays. He did shoot gaps. He is a good player. There's no question about it. He just wasn't perfect for what the Eagles wanted.
He made almost 20 more tackles than Fletcher Cox, and Cox gets more snaps than Javon last year. They're probably pretty damn close, but I would bet that Fletcher played more downs than Javon. So if he wasn't good against the job, I'm not sure how Fletcher didn't get those openings that you're describing for Javon if there was double teams on a guy like Davis in the middle of the line.
Yeah, well, tackles can be deceiving. You can make a tackle coming from the backside because the guy on the front side is reading the run and controlling both gaps. The running back has to stall where he's going. The guy from the backside chases it down. It all gets complicated. There's no question about it. Javon Hargrave was a fantastic player for the Eagles last year. Again, the weakness, if you said, there's a weakness, it was his run defense. So the Eagles are going to have a chance to be better against the run, but will they be as productive as pass rushers? And they're probably not going to get 11 sacks out of a defensive tackle this season. So,
right.
There's a little bit of a drop off there in one area, but you might be better in the other area. And with the amount of pass rushers they have, it actually might benefit them to be better have a better run defender at that spot, and then let the edge rushers have an extra half second to get to the quarterback. So
yeah,
we'll
I'd rather have 55 sacks and better run defense than 70 sacks. I don't know how the fans might think about that because they want sack. But this team's got to get better against the run.
The fans want the 85 Bears where you have, 70 sacks and a number 1 run defense, right?
Yeah.
That's what they want.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, the 85 Bears, a little bit of an anomaly there. So
yeah, and Javon's a really good player, but
absolutely.
You also have to add in $21 million a year now. Is he a $21 million player? I don't know. I think the Eagles made the right decision. As you mentioned, Tommy, despite having the worst coordinator in the history of mankind, a lot of guys had career seasons. Javon's one of them.
Right.
And we call them career seasons for a reason. Sometimes you keep ascending, as Jalen Hurts has proven on the offensive side, at least to this point. But typically, career year means career year. And that means the next year, it's not going to look like your football card. Who said that last week? Baseball card, Jetty. But, typically you are what you are on the back of the football card. Javon's not going to get 11. He's not Aaron Donald.
Right.
So I think the Eagles made the right decision. But then again, I'm looking at Jalen Carter, and it might not be right away, but Jalen Carter's more talented. Jalen Carter's got a chance to be a much better player, and I'm using that word purposefully, a much better player than Javon Hargrave. And Javon Hargrave's a really good player. That's how much upside I think Jalen Carter has.
Oh, totally agree. He's a special dude. I mean, you saw last year, 2021, Georgia had one of the best defenses in the history of college football, loaded with all kinds of stars, and their best player was a sophomore defensive tackle. It was Jalen Carter. You know, everybody would just go, you know, you're sitting there, you're watching all the prospects they have, and the one dude that was the best was 88. You didn't even, he was just so young, you didn't even learn his name. You just said, well, wait till next year, we'll see what 88 does.
Yeah.
And then last year, you know, he had a fantastic year. And you could see his combination of agility, explosiveness, strength, skill, athleticism. I mean, he's got it all. He has the potential to be a special player if he can stay focused, if he can stay driven. And I think, you know, he's on the right team with the teammates he's got here, the coaching staff, the fact he's coming into a winning culture. He's used to winning in college. I think some guys hit the NFL, and if they go to a bad team and they've come from a good program, you get a couple of losses, and they just don't know how to handle that, and they kind of lose themselves. And he's coming to the Eagles, where the expectation is championship football. He came from Georgia, where the expectation is championship football. So everything is in place for him to be his best. But NFL history is full of guys that didn't, you know, had good circumstances, didn't pan out. So we'll see what happens. But, you know, if he turns out to be the player the Eagles think, yeah, he's going to be special.
Tommy, need you to look into your crystal ball for me a little bit here, make a prediction on playing time at a specific position for the Eagles. I think we all believe Nakobe Dean is going to be their number one linebacker. He's got the green dot. He's going to be on the field much more than anybody else. But when they've got two linebackers on the field, didn't the NFL used to play with three linebackers?
Too many people think they still do, Jody.
Yeah.
Too many people. Oh, 4-3, 3-4.
Yeah, right.
Drives me nuts.
So when the Eagles actually have two linebackers on the field, the guy after Nakobe Dean to get the most snaps will be either Nicholas Morrow, someone else as a linebacker who is right now on the Eagles roster, or someone on another team that Howie Roseman will acquire some way, shape, or form, released, traded for, acquired. Who will be the number two linebacker on the Philadelphia Eagles this year, A, B, or C?
I think it's going to be somebody that's already on the roster. Trading for somebody, you know, listen, it's possible. You know, Howie's always looking, but the NFL just isn't filled with great linebackers right now. And I don't know that there's anybody out there that they want to go make a move to bring in and then have to give up resources to get him and figure out how he fits in and this and that. I think they're going to try to stick with the guys they've got. They'd love to see Nick Morrow become a functional starter for them, or Christian Ellis, you know, is the guy that they probably would love because he's younger and even cheaper than Morrow to have him pan out. But I think they're going to give those guys every chance in the world to make it. If they do struggle, then obviously Howie's willing to go make a move early in the preseason, in the middle of the season. But my guess is they're going to stick with the guys they have.
At Lawlor NFL, make sure you follow Tommy on Twitter. You know, since last one from me, Tommy, since Jody went down the Nakobe route, I'll finish there. I saw you got you retweeted a great picture of or put it at eaglesblitz.com of Bill Berge playing middle linebacker. And I like your description, you know, 6'4", 243, four-time All-Pro, even had the perfect base mask. Bill Berge looked like a middle linebacker. And you said if Nakobe Dean is anywhere close as to good as a career as Berge did, we should all be happy. I agree with that 100%.
Yeah.
Game has changed, though. Nakobe ain't Bill Berge. He ain't 6'3", 243.
No,
he ain't
sir.
coming downhill. Are we putting too much on the shoulders of a guy who played 34 snaps last season, is undersized? Then again, maybe I should learn from Devonta Smith and Hassan Reddick because they're undersized and they did just fine. where are you on Nakobe Dean? Are you no doubt about it, or let's wait and see?
I have doubts. I think I love his mentality. He's smart. He's got good instincts. Obviously, fantastic production in Georgia. But the fact that he's a little undersized and he's not a great athlete, that gives him two things to overcome. So there's a little bit of doubt. There's a little bit of hesitation with him. But linebacker is a position where instincts are critical. He's got the instincts. So I think that gives him every chance to succeed. And he seems like a very driven dude, And again, that's the linebacker is a position where that kind of stuff matters. And so I think he's going to pan out. How good he's going to be. Is he going to become a star linebacker? I don't know about that. I don't think this guy's going to be Fred Warner, right? But he doesn't have to be. If he can just be a solid middle linebacker for the Eagles for the next 5, 6, 7 years, that's fine. That's what they need. They don't need star linebackers. It'd be great if he did become one. What they need are, pass rushers, run stuffers. The linebackers make tackles, make the occasional play, and that's fine in this defense. So I think he's going to be good, but it's fair to question him. He's not a slam dunk, like can't miss type guy.
I don't think he needs to be the next Fred Warner. He needs to be the next TJ Edwards. And although they're different type of players, I think Nakobe's got a chance to be a better playmaker at linebacker than TJ Edwards. TJ may be the better force, stop the guy, dead tackle. He's 2 yards off the line of scrimmage. He's down at 2 yards off the line of scrimmage. I think he'll be – I don't know that Nakobe will be able to do that as well as Edwards, but I think he's got a chance to be every bit as good an overall linebacker as Edwards this upcoming season. Tommy, we always appreciate it when you jump on board with us. You got any vacation plans between now and 12 days from now when the Eagles get camp open?
You got to hurry up.
Some fishing in or something between now and then.
Just sitting around listening to you guys. I mean, that's a vacation, right?
We appreciate it.
You need to upgrade your life there, big guy. Tommy, good stuff. Always a pleasure, bud. We'll call you in a couple of weeks when camp gets opened up. Thanks, bud.
Sounds awesome. You guys take care.
Thanks, Tom.
Tommy Lawlor. Check out his website, Eagles. That's IGGLES Blitz.com. Yeah, I saw that picture of Berge. I did the Eagles pregame show on their radio network for 2 years with Berge, right?
Yeah.
I did that show in fear basically every single week because I thought Berge was going to get a little overly excited and then I was just going to catch an elbow in the face because I had to sit next to him every single week. I thought I was going down hard. Good dude and just a maniac who was very good for the Philadelphia Eagles. Nakobe Dean standing next to Bill Berge, you think they play the same position?
Well, now you could say that about Seth, right? Everybody's intimidated by Seth on the pre and post game show. Nicest guy in the world, though. But he's a big dude. Seth's a big dude.
Yeah,
linebackers have changed, but and that's why I bring up. I try to stay ahead. I think for my age, I'm pretty forward thinking when it comes to the evolution of the NFL. Devonta Smith has proven a lot of things to me. Hassan Reddick has proven a lot of things to me. And the game has changed drastically, and it's not important to have a Bill Berge anymore. In fact, it might be a detriment, as crazy as that is to say. And that's not a criticism of Bill Berge. It's just an indication of how the game has changed. We talked about 7-on-7, Jody, last week when I was talking about the high school kid. It's what it's about. It's about movement. It's about athleticism. And, probably what Tommy brought up, Nakobe's not the greatest athlete either. That's probably a bigger concern for me now than the size aspect of it.
I'm buying into the kid because he's just a flat out player. Because he runs 1/10 of a second slower in a 40-yard dash. Do I think that's going to make him a lesser player? No. Do I think because he's 10 pounds lighter than what linebackers are who were Pro Bowl players last year? No. I think he's going to be able to play because he can play. That's my read on that. And I think linebacker size just ain't what it used to be. Now, there is one position where I think size still matters, And if anything, it's actually advanced rather than most of the NFL is smaller than it used to be because it's become a more athletic game and a less physical game. How is it less physical? Well, that's the way they write the rules. That sometimes physicality can end up you got to pay a price for it rather than benefit from it. Oh, in the trenches, you still got to be big. And I do want to come back to talk about offensive line masterminds, which took place this weekend down in Frisco, Texas, led by homegrown star Lane Johnson. Been a big part of that. And what it actually means in the NFL, that the players now have to coach themselves up as much as the teams have to coach the players up because of collective bargaining agreements and the like. We'll talk a little bit about that when we come back. He's McMullen, I'm McDonald, Mac and Mac on Birds 365.
Heading down the shore, have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wild wood days.
Score and save in southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, Birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer 3 major services, the first one being basement waterproofing, the second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs, and then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
EAGLES, Eagles.
He's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. We would be Mac and Mac here on Birds 365, hour number 2. Thank Tommy Lawlor for jumping in. Hour number 1 from EaglesBlitz.com. Jeff Kerr from CBSSports.com is going to join us coming up in about 20 minutes from now. NFL writer, Eagles writer for CBSSports.com. All right, J-Mac, I was lucky enough to have Brian Baldinger on my CBS show last night. And I didn't even know Baldy was going there. When I asked the question, I just said, what are NFL guys doing this way? You're a former player. 2 weeks before you got to show up. You're worried about conditioning, but you're also taking some downtime. You're studying your playbook. What are you doing 2 weeks from now? He said, Jody, funny you ask. I spent the last couple of days in Frisco, Texas at O-Line's Masterminds, which Lane Johnson is a big part of, one of the founding fathers. And you got a bunch of these that happen during the NFL offseason, positional groups getting together, guys in the NFL. They invite some good young college players to come there so they can just network and exchange some ideas and join, have some fun, kind of set some bonds together and the like. And it dawned on me that, like teams should be doing this, not players doing this, that teams should be behind this and the driving force. And it's all player driven, that this is done by guys in the league or guys like Brian Baldinger who used to be in the league and are still NFL media types. They all get together and have these quote unquote conferences. Is that a bad sign for the NFL that these guys are doing it on their own? Or is it a good sign for the NFL that the players care enough about advancing the game that they're going to undertake this thing on their own?
I think it's a good sign for the players that engage. I think it's a bad sign for the players that don't engage. From the league's perspective, they're not allowed. The teams are not allowed to do it. They'd prefer to do it. Well, I shouldn't say that, because the coaches would prefer to do it themselves, but they can't have the players. So, and the owners have said, basically, give us more games, give us more games. All right, take away the off-season stuff. We don't care about that. So the owners are a little bit different than the coaches. The coaches would prefer to have their hands on them, but they can't. So, and God, I can't get away from Carson Wentz. I mean, I think that's a big part of Carson Wentz's downfall, along with the injuries. Left to his own devices. I've talked about this. I've written about it during the pandemic. Didn't do anything. I'm not going to. Now, he's a high-level athlete. Of course, he was staying in shape. But when it came to the mechanics, when it came to working with Tom House, he didn't do it. He didn't do it, and he regressed. The players that actively seek opportunities to get better in the offseason, it's the only way you're going to become great in the modern NFL. Because if you just say, all right, mini camp's over, and the Eagles don't even have mini camps, so OTAs are over, I'll show up for training camp. Look, you might be phenomenally gifted enough to be, but you're not going to be at the top of your game. Because there are guys like Lane Johnson and offensive line masterminds, was born out of Von Miller's passing camp. It's like Von started his pass rushing camp before, and the offensive linemen are getting wrecked by this defensive lineman. They're like, we got to do something to keep up. And all of a sudden, this is born with Duke Manyweather and Lane. And it's become, I think there were 275 people down there. It's become bigger and bigger each year. I think this was the 6th year they've had it. And tight end university, George Kittle, Travis Kelce, Greg Olson created that. I mentioned Bond is probably the first, I believe. But then there's all these little, Chuck Smith, before he got back in the league, as a coach, was a pass rushing guru, former Falcons defensive end, for people that remember him. There's a lot of guys like that. Quincy Avery, who coached Jalen Hurts for many years, and Deshaun Watson, and certain quarterbacks. There's also that more personalized part of it as well. And it's been going on for years, and you have to do it because the coaches can't help you. They're not allowed. So if you want to be great, you got to figure that out and what you're going to do in the offseason.
And kudos to all the guys that are showing up and participating and hopefully learning and making themselves better player, and also passing knowledge on to fellow players at the same position. Good on them. You talked about the CBA, and I understand what you said, that they just can't. The teams can only do so much, and if they do more than that, somebody calls them on the carpet and they get their wrist slapped and they get fines and everything else. Has the players' union done a disservice to their own players.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
where they continue to, quote unquote, win in the negotiations. They almost never seem to get more money. They just play more games, and the owners put more money in their pockets, and they get breadcrumbs. But they continue to win on the less hours, less stays, less work, which, hey, I'm same as everybody else. Less is more when it comes to work. Everybody wants to do a little bit less and still get paid.
Yeah,
the
that
same thing they
3-day
do.
week was nice. That 3-day week
Last
was
week,
what?
thank you, Joe Krause. He gave us both the 4th and the 5th off. Or the 3rd and the 4th off. Are they actually hurting the players that they have to put together these gatherings, these conferences, and do it on their own? And again, tip of the hat to them for doing just that. But have they actually hurt the players by negotiating out practice time with the individual teams in the league?
Yes, and I say yes, because I assume you're saying football wise. Now it depends what the end game is. Football wise, unquestionably, the answer is yes. Quality of life, maybe they're helping the players. So it depends what your end game is. But as far as just getting better at football, they've done a tremendous disservice to players. And look, I talk to people all the time in this league, and a lot of fans have a hard time with this, especially younger fans. Look, the athletes are better. The game is not better. The game is not better. And it just makes it's just common sense. If you have this level of athlete practicing and doing things the same as a prior generation, well, they're going to get better because they're going to practice. Practice makes perfect. Now, you got to bring in the health aspect of it. You got to bring in, you're saving the bodies and all that part. But just from a fundamental technique standpoint, there's no argument. The game, and I use the word aesthetic, the game is not nearly as aesthetic as it once was. Just watch a Bill Walsh offense versus the typical RPO offense in the modern NFL. It's on a different level. You can't run a Bill Walsh offense because you don't have enough time to practice a Bill Walsh offense. I had this debate with somebody, and I always bring up, and I've told you the story, the Penn State game. It was 4th and 3 or 4th and 4. Big play against Ohio State. Chip Kerr is going to be on the show. He'd remember it. I talked to it with him. Everybody's going nuts. James Franklin runs an RPO. I think it was Trace McSorley at the time. Saquon might have been there, whatever. It blows up. Ohio State wins the game. All the Penn State fans are just obsessed. What the hell are you doing on the game on the line? They want him to pull the Bill Walsh masterpiece out of his ass on the biggest play of the game where he doesn't practice it all week.
Right.
Or all summer. Or all the, and you just want to, oh, well, here we need it, so just do it. It's not how it works. You run what you practice, and you can only practice this much. So everything has been simplified. It's uglier, but the athletes are better.
And like you said, with the whole conversation of 7-on-7 last week, it's a skills game now. You expect the trenches to be great, and the Eagles, God bless them, have been smart and kept their focus on the trenches and have one of the best defensive line, the unquestioned for me, best offensive line. So they have done what they've needed to do to keep the focus across the entire team. Football in general seems to be more focused on skill positions and ability to throw the football and speed and athleticism. But you still got to keep the quarterback clean, which means you got to be good at the trenches, or if you're looking at it from a defensive perspective, get the quarterback dirty, get him to the ground, and Eagles did that 70 times last year. Baldy told me, and I apologize for not remembering the coach, what team, but he's the offensive line coach of an NFL team who is down at Offensive Masterminds this weekend. He told Baldy between when camp opens up And oh, by the way, a couple of teams in the NFL are opening in 8 days. The Eagles are going an extra week. Shockingly, Eagles doing less. So they don't open till the 25th, but other teams are opening on the 18th next week. He said in the 6 weeks, you've got 7 weeks, 2 full weeks in August if you're opening next week, plus all of September, 2 in July, all of August, and into a week of September. You got somewhere between 7 and 7.5 weeks before the first game of the season. The offensive coach said, we have 12 padded practices. That's how many practices they have between first day of camp and first game of the regular season. 12 padded practices. Baldy told them, that was my first week in the NFL.
Yeah.
That they did 2 a day, every day, 1 day off. Do the math. That's 12 padded practices in their first week. In the NFL this year, you got 7 to 8 weeks between when camp opens up and the first game is played. 12 padded practices total. So the game has changed, John. I'm with you. Not necessarily for the better. Quality of life, less work for getting paid, the same thing. Understand all those things. But the actual quality of the game, when you're just putting less time into it, I can't believe it can get better. Can you?
No, it can't. I mean, that's just common sense. I mean, the more you practice anything, you're bringing up short weeks, and everybody loves short weeks. But, repetition, right? The more now a short week for you, Jody, because you have 15 jobs, you're on the air all the time. You get plenty of repetition. I need repetition, baby. I got to get,
You write enough columns, buddy. I know you. You can whip out a column in about 15 minutes with those fast fingers.
But I mean, anybody, the more you do something, the better you get at it. And it's always been that way. It will always be that way. Baldy's right. I mean, look, those days were long. I'm on the sidelines of 2 a days, and it's all, they were grueling. And again, from a quality of life standpoint, you've improved a lot as an NFL player, but there's no way you're getting better with less practice time. And that's another thing I've talked about with a lot of offensive coaches over the past 5-10 years. One of the biggest cliches, and you'll hear it 100 times, got to learn the playbook, especially with rookie players. Got to learn the playbook. Got to learn the playbook. Dirty little secret is they don't even teach plays anymore. They teach concepts.
Right.
In other words, Jalen Hurts, here's the free safety. Boom. Here's where the ball goes. If that's not there, boom. That's where the ball. They teach concepts. Same thing defensively with these mixed zone coverages, mix and match. This is what you do here. This is what you do here. It's not the old, John Gruden, verbose. And by the way, that's probably a good thing, because those guys would, make it difficult just to make it difficult. And that doesn't make sense either. But especially with younger quarterbacks, it's concepts. It's not plays. And the game has changed dramatically. And
that's one of the reasons why I think Devonta Smith is one of the best wide receivers in the National Football League. With less work, he runs such precise patterns and breaks it off exactly where it's supposed to be. So rather than the coach going and run it again and run it again and run it again, same practice play. No, they're talking about the concepts in meetings. But Jalen Hurts knows when he has to throw it to a spot that Devonta Smith is going to be there. And I'm sure you saw the story over the weekend. Devonta Smith ran Richard Sherman out of the NFL. That Sherman admitted that it was attempting to cover Devonta Smith in his final season in the NFL. Thought he had him played right. Thought he had him read right. Devonta made such a good move that he just popped his groin and made it through the rest of the game. But he said, I can't cover these young, fast wide receivers anymore. And a little feather in your cap if you're Devonta Smith that you ran Richard Sherman out of the National Football League.
I mean, Devontae's a great route runner. That's one thing. You have to reach to be a great receiver in the NFL. You have to reach a certain floor from an athleticism standpoint. I mean, you need to be a certain level of athlete. But once you reach that floor, if you're a good route runner, you're going to be a good receiver. And especially younger receivers, because a lot of younger receivers aren't good route runners, and it takes them a while. But if you think about the Marvin Harrisons of the world right now, what's Justin Jefferson known for? Is route running. If you go back, I get, I always bring up Diggs. So many. When I ask young receivers, somebody say Stephon Diggs. Watch Stephon Diggs route running. It is unbelievable. If you're a good route runner, you're going to be a good NFL receiver.
And Justin Jefferson forever will be a guy we'll talk about here in Philadelphia because they took a wide receiver right in front of Justin Jefferson.
A good route runner.
Didn't quite pan out to be the same play. You know what annoyed me more than that, John? And you're right about his strength as a route runner. I remember leading up to that draft,
slot receiver
trying to put him in this little discrepancy. Oh, but he's just a slot guy. He's a slot. You can't take him that high because he's a slot guy. He was a slot guy his senior year. People didn't go back and do the research. He played outside the year before and made a ton of catches. In the big year that he and Burrow had, he was a slot guy, but he surely showed the ability to play outside previously in his collegiate career. That was such a BS line. I don't know if it was more an Eagle thing or more of a Philly thing. I remember hearing it nationally as well. Justin Jefferson, only a slot receiver. Please stop it. Do your research.
No, that wasn't only a Philly thing. That was pervasive throughout the NFL. And it was more of I don't care what fans say. I mean, I was, what the hell were the scouts thinking? Not that was my issue with that. But from the Eagles' perspective, the problem I have, and I can't stand, I've told you this, Jody, I can't stand manufactured touch players. The Eagles were looking for a manufactured touch player. Look, some guys do it well. Kyle Shanahan does it well.
Right. I was going to say, you can't just dismiss it because it's proved to work in the right hands.
Yeah, but the right hands are so few.
That's fair.
I got to cover Cordero Patterson. By the way, you and I don't know if you remember, we had a drop there because Cordero Patterson is a pet peeve of mine because he is a great, great football player. And I saw Damo, by the way, on the 33rd team, put him in his Hall of Fame. He was just part of it. Potential Hall of Famer as a special teamer. Probably not going to make it because they don't put in special teamers. But he is a great, great football player. Problem is, doesn't have a position. It's like the old recruiting athlete. They'll say, if you go to high school recruits, some of them, they will label athlete because they haven't figured out the position yet. If Cordero Patterson got with Kyle Shanahan right away, he'd be even better.
Probably.
But he didn't. And so many of these guys maybe could be something. And my problem is you have to be very, very disciplined with manufactured touch players. You have to specifically say, you have to get out your card and say, I got to get him the football. I got to get him the football. I got to get him the football, whether it's every 10 plays, whatever. But too many coaches are into, what do? All right, we're going to run this play. It's not about getting somebody the ball in space. Kyle's good at it. Who else is good at it? I don't know. Not many. So I don't want to hear, and I have tremendous respect for Doug Peterson, but I don't want to hear about you needing a manufactured touch player who's never going to get the damn football. And I don't want to say Jalen Reagor was going to be a good player because he wasn't in hindsight. But I just don't like the mentality of taking manufactured touch players. I don't like it.
No, and I think Christian McCaffrey was a great manufactured touch guy in Carolina. Got even better in San Francisco, but I think it's more.
Well, you can just give him the ball, though.
I was going to say it's more the talent of the player than it is the coaches and his ability to exactly diagnose and put a play together to make it work. All right, McMullen and McDonald, we got to get a timeout in here because I see Jeff Kerr's ready to rock and roll. From CBSSports.com, Jeff Kerr joins us next. Stay here.
Do you stream on a Roku, Fire Stick, Google TV, or Apple TV? Now you can watch 6ABC 24/7 with the 6ABC Philadelphia streaming app.
For the big story on Action News,
Search 6ABC Philadelphia and start streaming today.
Go to get your game on. Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the stakes and the stakes. Go to get your parlay on. Go to get your party on. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean. Visit theoceanac.com to plan your visit.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Go passionately. Go fearlessly. Go confidently.
Go Birds!
Go confidently towards your goals with First Trust, Philly's hometown bank for nearly 90 years, and the official bank of the Philadelphia Eagles. We're focused on getting you over the goal line. So go with conviction, go with trust,
Go Birds!
and go forward with us by your side. First Trust Bank, the official bank of Philadelphia dreams. Oh, and go Birds.
All right, did you know I was the mommy slam dunk champion?
Really?
Yes, really don't sound so surprised.
Let's see it.
Oh, you're ready. All right, here we go. Let's hear the crowd. So go to right, I go to left, I fake a mom. Mama, go up, mama!
She did it.
Again? You can't avoid gravity, but United Healthcare can help you avoid financial surprises by helping you compare costs and doctor quality ratings. United Healthcare.
Uh-huh.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Johnny Mac, Jody Mac makes a smack a Mac Birds 365. We're lucky enough to get Jeff Kerr to join us on this Monday morning. JK, we reference this enough, so we'll get to the football in a second. Your hobby that you participate on the lanes, do you ever call it kegling?
I never did.
I love that word. I don't know why, but I love the word kegling as compared to bowling. I don't know why. I don't even know where I heard it. But I remember using that phrase when I was in freaking high school.
It sounds like bowling with beer, like a keg of beer.
Yeah, I think you just put out a stereotype of what we bowlers do, Jody.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm pointing the finger at myself, and I haven't bowled. I've bowled 5 times in the last 20 years. But no, I used to kegel, and I call it kegling. If you are more serious than that, Jeff Kerr, I apologize to you. And I think you've proven that by saying you don't use the word kegling. If I went bowling when the show was over, I'd be going kegling.
I probably would too, because I always like to have a beer. I'm not exactly,
there you go.
I'm not the biggest beer drinker when I bowl, but afterwards, yeah, you'll find me over there, at least having one at the bar.
Good job out of you.
All right, how we do out in Reno? How'd it go before we get to the less important stuff? How'd it go out in Reno?
It was going great till I had to get up, and I'm not even going to make an excuse for it. I bowled terrible in the doubles portion of the event, and I rebound with a strong single. So I had 3 500 series out of 4 out there, which isn't bad considering you're bowling on a pro shot. But when you're bowling with Kyle Troop, Liz Johnson, the best in the world. I don't know if you guys heard of them or not. Kyle Troop's the guy with the fro, by the way. I don't know if you guys know, seen him, but they're good. I mean, there's a reason why it's like going up against Jalen Hurts in football. They're good for a reason.
All right. The
All right, so
legendary
you were out there with
Liz
the best of the
Johnson.
best, huh?
Best of the best for there this week.
Wow.
I mean, it's a 4-month tournament, but this just happens to be the PBA off season or their summer break, and a lot of them go out there. It was cool to see them, though. You know, we're in the Silver Legacy Casino, and you could just go up there and talk to them. You know, ask them how they did, and they're all very polite. For that they couldn't give us the time of day if they wanted to, but they stopped and were able to talk with us. JAKIB Buttriff, sorry, I always say his last name wrong. He's a powerful left-hander. He bowled in a Bowler's Journal tournament with us. It's like a side tournament, and he shot 700. I said, "Hey, if I ever shoot 700 in this, I might quit."
Ooh. Yeah. So no Ernie McCrackens who are trying to run you off the road or put your
no Ernie McCrackens in this tournament. Although,
all right.
I will say the intros for us when we walk into the National Bowling Center, again, that's like walking in, Jerry World, essentially. It was goofy. They played that "This Is How Legends Are Made" song. I'm like, there are no legends being made here tonight. I promise you that.
Little overkill, huh? Was there, and I promise we'll get to football in a second, were there any incidents with the best of the best hanging out there and at least within your inner circle, you're acknowledging and understanding what they've achieved in their career? Did Britney Spears show up to try and talk to any of them? Or
no,
were there any celebrities that were trying to hobnob with bowling celebrities that you caught a view of and said, damn, this really is a big deal because this person, Taylor Swift didn't show up is the question I guess I'm getting to. She wasn't there to hobnob with your crew.
The Beach Boys were there. Does that count?
No.
Yeah,
they played Saturday night. They were at the Silver Legacy Casino.
Damn.
All right. Yeah, that's nice. That's Beach
pretty
Boys.
impressive.
Yeah. I'd rather see Britney, but
Oh, I'd rather see Britney too, but she ain't showing up and getting slapped in the face.
I'm sitting home watching the Major League Baseball draft. Kerr is out watching the Beach Boys.
Now, what is the difference? I promise this is my last one, but what is the difference between, what did you call it? A pro shop and
a pro shop.
If I go 2 miles down the street, I can go to my local bowling alley. What is the difference between the pro track and the track that I'm going to?
So basically a house shot is how it sounds. Like they'll use like a combination. It's like a light oil pattern so you can get the ball to hook easier. It's honestly to get people to the lanes and to score. And I mean, I average about 210, 215 on that type of shot, but on a shot what the pros do, which is a lot more complicated, I'm only averaging about 170 on there. So it's a big difference, and people just don't like scoring on that. It's basically like golfing on a basic golf course that isn't hard, and then all of a sudden, you're going to Pebble Beach for the U.S. Open.
Okay. Yeah, a little bit of a difference there, and more power to you, Jay Kerr. Stick with what works for you. Keeps you up in those 200s. All right, scoring. Who's going to be doing the scoring for the Eagles this year? I asked this question to Tommy Lawlor when we had him on last hour. I've asked every guest for the last couple of weeks. How is the carries? How is the touches? How is the workload going to break out between the Eagles' backs this year? You want to take a guess at how Sirianni and Johnson are going to spread the ball around to the running backs this year? They got talent there. The question is, how are they going to use them?
If Rashad Penny doesn't get injured, and this is a big if here, I think this would be the guy they want to get the most carries at running back. I think that would be the guy they want. But if he gets injured, then it gets more complicated, because then do you want to use DeAndre Swift as your main ball carrier? Do you want to be a pass-catching back, or do you go with Boston Scott and Kenny Gainwell? Maybe Trey Sermon finds his way into that mix. But if all goes according to plan, I think it's Rashad Penny will get the lion's share of the carries.
So I've been saying this, and I'll throw it by you, Jeb. If Rashad Penny doesn't get the lion's share of carries, in other words, if they go through the summer, they go through the joint practices, they say, hey, DeAndre Swift's our guy. Is Rashad Penny even here? In other words, can he go to the Anthony Harris degree of being the number one safety one day and off the roster the next if he doesn't beat out DeAndre Swift?
Doesn't it feel like he's the guy that he's either going to make the team, start, play a lot, or he gets cut?
Yeah,
It does feel like that. And I think Penny could be a very good number 2 running back, but I don't think that's what you brought him here for. I think you brought him here for the guy who's averaging 6.1 yards per carry over the last 2 years and has been one of the most efficient running backs in football when he's healthy. But I don't think, and again, this is, what day are we on? July 10th? If you ask me right now who's the number 1 running back on the Eagles and if DeAndre Swift could beat out Rashad Penny, I'm going to say no, but that's why we have training candidates. I also thought Anthony Harris was going to, and Jaquiski Tart were going to be the safeties on July 10th.
We all did. Well, not all of it. After I saw Jaquiski for 2 weeks, I
remember standing next to you at training camp and you just shook your head at Jaquiski Tart. I'm like, I kind of put where I stood on Jaquiski Tart after that.
All right, let me run this by you, Jeff Kerr, because I've run it by Johnny Mack. He dismissed me. I ran it by my partner, Glenn McMullen, WIP, over the weekend. He dismissed me. I ran it by Brian Baldinger last night. He was not quite as dismissive as my 2 partners, but he said, yeah, Jody, I don't think that's happening. Eagles running back includes load management this year. That on any given week, Swift and or Penny could be inactive. Last year was real easy for John. He didn't even have to get the inactive list. Trey Sermon was on it. He knew it every single week. He was on the roster, but he was inactive every single week. Won't be the same this year. It'll be rotating guys that are inactive because they're giving running backs week off to try and preserve them, to try and keep them from getting hurt. They added 2 guys who never played full 17-week seasons in Swift and Penny. That there will be load management to the Eagles back. If any team in the league's going to do it, 2 reasons it'll be the Eagles. Number 1, they subscribe to less is more. And number 2, Howie Roseman likes to zig when other people are zagging. No one has done load management in the NFL just yet. Philadelphia Eagles do it with the running backs this year. Are you with me, Jeff Kerr?
Yeah, they'll rest them in week 18 when they have everything clinched.
Okay, so you're not
I'm not going for that.
Just waiting to see this happens when Nick Sirianni actually is forced to use the word load management during this year. I'll just remember all you guys who left.
Well, the Eagles, I think it was Ed pointed out, Ed Kratz, to his credit, the Eagles do their load management during the week. I could see Rashad.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I could see Rashad Penny being in the veteran maintenance club very, very early in the process if he is the lead back on this team. So I could see that maintenance going on during the week. But once it's game time, I don't think I get Jody's theory from Howie Roseman's perspective. But I don't think Howie would force that on Nick Sirianni. And I think if he did, that would be the first creating ripple of issues. Because Nick Sirianni, look, he's full of you-know-what when he says every game is the same. But that's part of his ethos, and that's part of his getting people on the right page and the right framework and the right mindset. So if you're signaling, oh, we don't need Penny this week because you stink. That would not go well with
not because you stink, because it's his turn to sit. He's played 3 weeks in a row. He needs a load management week off.
We playing baseball here, Jody Mack. The aforementioned day off.
Yeah, I have an answer for that. I know baseball's 162 games. I know NBA and the NHL is 61 games apiece. 17 NFL games is more detrimental to one's body than 162 baseball games, 82 NBA games, or 82 NHL games. It's a different animal. I know mass numbers, how many games played. And I didn't play football on any level, but I guarantee you talk to the guys who played it all in high school. What did you feel worse after a basketball game, a baseball game, or a football game? Every single one of them is going to say football 10-1. More pain to the body, more work on the body. That's why If load management is necessary in basketball, I'm sure it's hell telling you it's necessary.
I will back you up on this, Jody Mac. So I have talked to, I won't mention his name, but he's a former NFL running back, and he played in the 90s. And he said there's no worse pain than getting a football and right away getting hit.
Well,
he said do it 20, 25 times a game, and you really start feeling it the next day.
Well, yeah. I mean, and there are fans who think they can take NFL hits. But,
I know I can, and I used to do the hitting back in the day. I know I can. I was sore Monday after a high school game.
But here's where I'll say, and Jody, I hear what you're saying. It's designated. But when you get into that 17-game mindset and you need a win, you're going to sit somebody because it's their designated sitting time. Now, maybe if they're the exact same, but if you want, you got to beat the Dallas Cowboys and Rashad Penny's your best running back, but that's the day he's supposed to sit. You're going to tell Nick Sirianni to sit him?
I get that, but you're telling Nick Sirianni to sit Lane Johnson in practice that week. So
practice is different.
Yeah, practice is
different.
Eagles sat Brian Westbrook. I swear he never practiced in a couple of his prime years. They always said it was like a knee injury or an ankle injury, but I remember 18-year-old Jeff being like, "Do I buy that?" Or because he's gonna play Sunday and he plays Sunday and rack up 30 yards.
The reason why they do that load management during the week is so they can play at all costs. Like, I don't care if Lane Johnson practices at all, but he's got to be there for the game. He's got to be there for the game. Jason Kelce got to be there for the game. It's all about being ready for the game. They can do it during the week, but he's got to be ready for the game if he's the guy. And, that's just the way it is. I don't think that part's changing.
I think the Eagles may be cutting edge in the National Football League and be the first team to actually go down that road. We'll see. I'm probably going to be wrong, but I'm sticking to my outside the box theory because the Eagles do like to be outside the box and would not be surprised if that were the case this upcoming season. I'll give you a prime example if you need one. Week 5, they're playing
LA Rams.
LA Rams. So let's even go further than that. The Rams, we don't think the Rams are going to be very good. The next week they got the Jets and Aaron Rodgers. They're 4-0. You don't think they'd be afraid to give Rashad Penny a week off? He's played well the first 3 games. You got him through the first 4, no injuries. Week 5, go ahead, Rashad, take the week off because we think the run that we're going to get on, Jets, Miami, Washington, and the rest is we're going to need you more than we're going to need you this week against the Rams.
Jody, there's a way you could do your load management theory without actually making these guys inactive. Say you build an early lead on them, and Rashad Penny is
all right. So then I'll ask both you guys. Last year, as we just mentioned, 3 running backs basically active every single week. When Sermon got active, the one game where he actually got a couple of carries, was somebody hurt, John?
The Jacksonville game, right?
Jacksonville game, yeah. I'd have to look it up.
Hold on, I'm trying to remember that game now because that was a rainy day. It's hard to remember a lot of things getting really bad.
Somebody had to be banged up because why would he be active?
Right.
But
I was banking on somebody being injured.
Let's see.
Who's gonna sit this year for the Eagles? If you're going Penny and Swift, who basically replaced Miles Sanders, Gainwell and Boston Scott still here. We'll put Sermon on the side, although we continue to note the coach likes him a lot. Let's say he's not in the mix. If they're only going to activate 3 backs every single week, and Boston's got a little bit of a leg up because he's returning kicks, even though that's less important than it's ever been, who's going to sit? How are they going to determine who's going to sit? If it's not load management, how do you make that call this week? Or do you actually think they'll play 4 backs active when none of them really are special team guys other than Boston on kickoff returns?
Well, Boston helps on kickoff, so it helps. That's what I was talking about with Penny. They could dress 4, but here's the problem. And
they could dress 4, but they're going to take 11 defensive linemen and 10 offensive linemen.
Not on
hell's
game.
Gonna play specials.
Not on game day. I'm saying they might keep 11 defensive linemen to keep them on the roster, but a bunch of those guys are going to be inactive. bunch of offense. The last two offensive linemen are going to be inactive. That's just the way it is every week. But here's the thing about Rashad Penny. They paid him $600,000. All right,
guaranteed him $600,000.
Yeah.
They paid him more than that, but he's got
guaranteed him
$600,000. Right.
It's gonna be the opposite with Rashad Penny. If he's the lead back, they're gonna run him till the wheels fall off, because, and people don't like that terminology, and they don't want to. There's still an ugly side of the NFL. There is no way Rashad Penny's going to be here in 2024. None. Either he's going to play to a degree where the Eagles aren't going to be in the mix, and he's going to be a superstar and they're not going to pay the position, or he's going to play poorly and they're not going to want him.
Right.
The Cowboys
did run him until the wheels fall off if he makes the team and he's the lead back.
The Cowboys did that with DeMarco Murray his last year. I think they made the decision long before he had the 1,800-yard year. He wasn't coming back, so we're going to run him to the ground. And they did it before they paid Zeke. Now, they made the mistake by paying Zeke, but Jerry Jones had the right philosophy there. We're going to run this guy and just run him.
It's ugly, but that's what they're going to do. That's what they're going to do.
And they're smart by doing that. He ain't going to be on this team after this year.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this question. Let's say first 3 games, DeAndre Swift shows that he is the best back the Eagles have. They're going to run him into the ground too?
Free agent, right?
Yeah, maybe, because they don't want to pay the position. They want to.
All right. So if three games in, Kenny Gainwell, who had that monster game against the Giants in the playoffs, and people continue to say, oh, he was great in the playoffs. No, he's great in one game in the playoffs. The other 2 games, he was nothing special. He might have been better than Miles Sanders, who didn't have a very good playoff run, but people overstate what Kenny Gainwell did in the playoffs.
By the way, look at Miles. In hindsight, they weren't bringing Miles back. They gave him a career, whatever the carry number was, 1,269 yards. Granted, he can't catch the football. They kind of did the same thing with Miles. $6.5 million. Hey, tip of the cap. Thanks, Miles. Let's move on. Same thing's going to happen, whether it's Penny, Swift. You know, if Swift comes back, that might be a bad sign, because that means he didn't perform that well. So it's kind of a catch-22. You want him to perform well, but if he performs well, he's out the door. I don't know what to tell you. They don't value the position.
I have a feeling the Eagles' 2024 running back is going to be somebody they draft, or like
Very possible,
or a Rashad Penny type signing. Like they'll find some guy in there that had a really good year with a team. If you're a bad team or a team that, you know, just kind of underperformed and let the running back walk. I was on the Panthers when the Panthers flagship station today, and we were talking about Miles Sanders, and they feel they got great value for Miles Sanders and what he could do for that offense. They're like, and they said the same thing you did, John. Can't catch, but he can run.
Yeah.
And Miles was the highest paid running back signed this offseason.
Yep.
It wasn't probably not a deal that he wanted, but
the franchise guys got more, but the truly
they haven't signed yet.
The truly unbettered, but they're guaranteed more. But the truly unbettered back that got the most money was Miles Sanders.
Miles Sanders, yep.
Yeah.
So, it's probably less than what I was told his market value was going to be. A lot of people thought it was going to be 8 to 9 million. Then he ended up getting 6.5. And apparently,
if you would have given me that 6.5 number, I said, yeah, the Eagles will bring him back. No, and they still had no interest.
And they said Miles was more than happy with the deal he got with Carolina.
Yeah.
Good on Miles, and I won't root against him this year. The Eagles don't play Carolina, so it doesn't much matter. I was a Miles Sanders fan when he was here. All right, Jeff, let me get this last question in for you. John and I have kicked this around, haven't touched on it in about a week or so. Who is going to be the backup Eagles nickel cornerback?
Ooh, this is a good one. So we're assuming Avonte Maddox is starting.
Right. But we'll also assume at some point Devonta Maddox is going to get hurt, because he usually does.
Are we giving up on Zach McPherson? because now it seems like they're finally putting him where he should be playing.
Yeah. No, I think he's the guy. Yeah, I think he's the backup nickel.
I think he is
a
too.
lot of it depends on, you assume they have enough bodies now outside with Calais Ringo. And again, my daily, he'll sign. Please don't worry about it. He'll sign before training camp.
I told someone asked me on Twitter last week, said, "Hey, Jeff, I know you're on vacation, but is Calais Ringo going to sign?" I'm like, yeah, he'll sign. Don't worry about it.
Between him and Greedy Williams and Josh Jobe, they will find somebody who can handle the backup outside corner position, which will enable them to let Zach focus on the slot. And I think they improved themselves that way.
They got some serious depth at cornerback, by the way.
Yeah.
They got a lot of bodies.
A lot of bodies. A lot of, but hey, as excited as everyone is for Ringo, he was drafted where he's drafted. He's 21 years old. He can run, but he's very raw. Greedy Williams, big name, second-round pick. Cleveland got rid of him for a reason. It's entirely conceivable that Zach is their best outside corner and inside corner as a backup. Still, but they would prefer that Ringo be ready or Greedy Williams or somebody else. Maybe
you don't think one of Ringo or Rick's or Jobe is going to step up and be the guy who's the number one backup outside corner?
I think there's a chance that it's Ringo, but he's very young. He's very raw. I don't think there's a chance.
I think Jobe has a good shot to make this team regardless because of special teams.
Yeah, Josh Jobe's going to be here. Mekhi Gardner's another guy. He's 6'2".
He had a good camp. He had a good main camp.
He's from LSU. So you would think they have so many dart throws that you would think one of the darts comes close to the bullseye at outside corner.
But by the way, John, I know the Eagles coaching staff kind of got on him, Mekhi Gardner, for that interception and the little excessive celebration he did, but I kind of like that out of an undrafted guy. It's saying, hey, look, I'm here. Like, I'm not going anywhere. And sometimes I feel like you have to show your emotions when you're beating the best of the best.
Yeah, he's an undrafted kid who just intercepted the runner-up for MVP. Let him have some fun.
Yeah, he's not going to get a 15-yard penalty for that.
No. Yeah. Let him have some fun. Yeah.
Doubting it highly. All right, Kerr, what can we expect out of you on CBSSports.com over the next 2 weeks? Get it when camps open up. Shoot, a couple of camps open up next week on the 18th. What can we be looking for you and your crew over at CBSSports.com as we get ready for camps to open up?
So before I go on vacation, I'll be writing about an overvalued player on every NFC team. Last week I did undervalued before I went on my bowling trip.
Who's the most overvalued Eagle player?
I didn't do overvalued yet. I did undervalued.
Okay.
Undervalued, I actually did Josh Sweat.
Well, you can tip your hand here. You're going to do everybody on every team next week. You can at least tell us who you're going to have as the Eagle guy here on Birds 365.
I'll tell you what, to be honest, that's going to be one of the hardest ones because it's hard to find
overvalued. I got to do it real quick. Who was the most overvalued? That's a good question.
It is a good question. It is. Who is it?
I think the Eagles are a little bit weird because I think some of the younger players are overvalued by the fan base, but it depends on your definition.
Yeah,
I can't count on.
I usually go by the contract and performance, but who would that be?
I'm not counting on Reed Blankenship. Everybody's penciling in Reed Blankenship. I'm not counting on Reed Blankenship. I can't count on Nakobe Dean. I have optimism, but I can't count on him.
Nicholas Morrow, I ain't counting on him either.
No. So I think it depends on your definition. But they have a lot of good players. They have a lot of good players.
Yeah, so I usually go by the contract too. So it might be Fletcher Cox, but then again, that's the going rate for a defensive tackle. What he got?
Yeah, he got $10 million. I mean, that's a bargain now.
Yeah.
You could have said that 2 years ago when he had the monster contract, but now veteran defensive tackle, $10 million. That's pretty good.
I mean, the guy I think it is, and just using John and Ed's top 25 Eagles rankings and where I had the guy ranked, they had Slay ranked higher than I did. They had Slay in the top 10. I do not. I have him outside the top 10 for the Eagles for this upcoming year, and his is still a contract guy. Even though they renegotiated it, they did it to bring the cap number down this year. He's still getting paid some pretty good money. I think at age 32, we might see some regression from Darius Slay. He could be their most
possible. I mean, a lot of people are looking at his second half as opposed to his first half and saying he's 32, but it's going to happen eventually. You know, so Bletch, I guess Bletch and Slay would be, because of the age, would be the two guys.
Age and money, as Jeff Kerr said. Yeah. That's the way you should do
it. I know this is really a reach here, but he's under consider Marcus Mariota. I know they pay for backup quarterbacks, but paying him a lot of money.
Yeah. Boy, his deep passing numbers were just
dreadful.
Awful. I don't think he could throw the ball more than 10 yards down the field.
I think we saw that in I remember someone put it was I think it was a pass to Omalade Zaccheaus, and someone said, boy, that's a terrible pass by Mariota. I'm like, that wasn't Mariota. That was Tanner McKee that threw it.
And they'll be able to rekindle their relationship here in Philadelphia this year. JK, always a pleasure, bud. Appreciate you hopping on board. We'll be looking for your stuff on CBSSports.com. Getting ready for the season. We'll get you back here on Birds 365 quick enough. Thanks, bud.
Yeah, sounds great. By the way, I'll also promote this. I got to write 5 NFC quarterbacks under the most pressure in 2023. And I have a feeling Dak Prescott's going to be number 1.
NFC quarterbacks, you said?
Yeah.
Yeah, Dak will probably be at the top of the list. JK, thanks.
Yeah, sounds great, guys. Thanks for having me on.
Thanks, Jeff.
Jeff Kerr, CBS Sports, here with us on Birds 365. All right, got to come back. Got to put a bow on the show. Mac and Mac wrapping up a Birds 365.
Heading down the shore, have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wild wood days.
Score and save in southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, Birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer 3 major services, the first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
EAGLES, Eagles.
Mac guys, wrapping it up here on Birds 365. Now this will tick off Eagle fans. Another day checked off. The Jalen Carter didn't get himself in trouble. And
taking them off, man. Taking them off, Joe.
Getting closer to him being back in Philadelphia, hanging with his guys, staying out of trouble. Yeah, I back again to what we started the show with when I asked Johnny Mac if he was superstitious or not. I'm not superstitious. I'm not worried about mentioning it here on Birds 365 that now you know he's going to go out and do some drag racing tonight, Jody, right? It's all your fault. I'm not going to play it. I'm just noting that it's another day that the Eagles got the most talented player in the draft at number 9 because he had some off-field issues. None of them have reared their ugly heads yet so far this offseason. All right, we got a good one coming tomorrow. Johnny Mac, you booked a couple of good guests for us tomorrow. Let the people know who we got joining us.
Well, Ray Diddy's going to be here, so that's number one. Everyone knows Ray Didinger, Hall of Fame, obviously writer and columnist, long time. He's going to stop by. Also, Bob Angelo, I think he's going to be interesting. Worked for NFL Films for years, 21 Emmy Awards. Bob Angelo has won in his career. He's got a new book coming up, The NFL Off-Camera, an A to Z guide to the league's most memorable players and personalities. The reason it's interesting, I always talk to those NFL Films guys, even people like me who get access to the players and coaches, everything's filtered to a certain degree. Even, off the record stuff is filtered because they know why we're there. They know why we're there. Or Bob's on the sidelines just capturing these raw moments of these great players in big games and big situations. They're the only people that see it completely unfiltered on the actual field. So I think it's going to be a really good guest. I think people are going to really enjoy it.
And I've heard Bob's name. I've never met him, but I've heard him mentioned by guys I know who worked at or worked with NFL Films. I'm really looking forward to shooting a breeze with him tomorrow. All right, so you and me back here in 22 hours. You in, McMullen?
Let's do it.
You better show up because you booked the 2 guests. So Johnny Mac will be here. Johnny Mac will be here. Ray Diddy and a special guest, Bob Angelo from NFL Films with a new book out. That sounds like a good show tomorrow. You should be here too. Tomorrow, Birds 365 in 2 and 2.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.